Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naitiki. So today we are starting 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. So in the previous chapter, which we did quite some time back, Krishna ended the chapter with saying, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Before that, he says, one who engages in full devotion service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So previous chapter, 14th chapter, was entitled the three modes of material nature. Now the question is, how do we get out of these three modes in this material world? So 15th chapter is Yoga of the Supreme Person, means how do we link ourselves with Krishna and to get out. How do we get out? Next one. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Urdham Moolam Adha Shakham Ashvattham Prahuravayam Chandansi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saved Ved. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is a knower of the Vedas. So now he's going to describe the material world and then how to get out of it. So this material world is compared to an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots are up and the branches are down and the leaves are there on the branches. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another to another to another. The tree of this material world has no end. And for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. So this banyan tree example is very appropriate here, because banyan tree or ashwath tree, it's not the people tree. It's a different. It's the vat vriksha. So in that vat vriksha, what happens if you have seen it, there is a main trunk, and then the branches go everywhere. And from the branches, you see there are some roots that are hanging down. And what happens, the roots, they really go to the ground, and then they become strong. And then when they enter the ground, so that root finally becomes another trunk. And then the banyan tree keeps on growing further and further and further. So this material world is like that. There's a one root or one trunk, which is Brahmaji, starts from Brahmaji, and then it keeps on expanding all over the place, all over the universe. And there is no end to this material world. Why? We'll see the different parts of this banyan tree. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. This tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located. the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. This process of extrication should be understood it should be understood. In the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotion service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotion service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. So that is the basic principle of devotion service. So even of the two, the more basic is attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord, by which the detachment of the material world will automatically happen. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upwards. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded, with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represent the result of living entities' activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Now, there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in its reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. So the reflection, like Prabhupada is explaining, that the tree which is mentioned here, upside down, with the roots up and the branches down, can only be seen as a reflection of a real tree on the banks of a pond. So when we see that reflection, in that reflection, we can see the roots are going up and the branches are down, or the crown of the tree is down. So this tree that is explained here by Krishna, so that tree is the tree of the material world. Means a real tree has to be there in the spiritual world. So and the reflection, the water that is talked about, through which we see the reflection, that is our desire, material desires. So because of material desires, this material world exists. If there is no material desire, I mean there is no place, or there is no scope of reflection of the spiritual tree. So then there is no material world. The material world exists because we desire it. And our desire is not that we want to be in the material world. Our desire is that we want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So that cannot happen in the spiritual world. So for that, Krishna creates the material world. So that desire is the root cause of our existence, of the creation of the material world and our existence here. Like in the picture in the background that I'm here, we can see that the tree and the reservoir of water pond, and then the reflection of the tree in the water behind the cows that Krishna and Balram are working on. So that is the explanation of this tree. This tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalistic Brahman to be the root of this material tree. Something happened to my computer. Just hang on. Okay, back to the class. This tree being the reflection of the real tree is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahman to be the root of this material tree. And from the root, according to Sankhya philosophy, comes Prakriti, Purusha, then the three gunas, then the five gross elements, Panch Mahabhuta, then the 10 senses, the Shendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide up the whole material world into 24 elements. If Brahman is the center of all manifestation, then this tree is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees. And the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. So Mayavadis or the Nirvisheshvadis, impersonalists, they say the root of this tree is Brahman, the Brahm Jyoti. Of course, there's a difference between Mayavad and Vaishnava philosophy, but we all agree upon the constituents of this tree. The material world is a perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness, but in reality. So if this is a reflection, then the origin must exist somewhere. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that the person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off the attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. So one who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas. So the person who says that I know Vedas, there are so many, Trivedi and Trivedi and Chaturvedis. But do they really know the Vedas? So one who knows the Vedas, it is said the Vedas are the hymns of the Vedas are the leaves of this tree. So when we look at any tree, it's just the leaves which makes the tree look very attractive. Of course, the fruits and flowers also, but the fruits and flowers are less in number in compared to the leaves. And one who gets attracted by the leaves and wants to remain in the tree, does not want to get out of the tree, then he doesn't know the real purpose of those leaves. Here the leaves are considered the Vedic hymns. It's in the shloka. So by reciting the Vedic hymns, by chanting those Vedic shlokas, one has to know how to cut off the attachment to the tree. Not to increase one's attachment. Means there are many Karmkandi Brahmins who do study the Vedas, and they do know some of the meaning, but the real import they don't know, real essence they don't know. They themselves are, and then they make their followers also into only the four Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, not only four, three only, Dharma, Artha and Kama. Forget about moksha. Hardly anybody tries to work on moksha. They say just do this karma activity, you'll get lots of money and you'll enjoy Dharma, Artha and Kama. But that's not the real purpose of this tree. Real purpose of the Vedic hymns, real purpose of the Vedas is to know how to get out of here. And Krishna says in Bhagavad, in 15th chapter only, that by all the Vedas I am to be known. He says, I am the compiler of the Vedas. And knowing Krishna means knowing a relationship with him, establishing a relationship with him, and one who has established the relationship. That is the yoga. That is the yoga of the Supreme Person. The yoga, 21st June, International Yoga Day, is that just the yoga asanas, which is good to keep the body fit, but the real purpose, real import of the yoga is to know Krishna and to get out of here, to have complete link with him, so that we don't remain in the material world anymore. Means the desire is gone to remain in the material. The desire to enjoy separately from Krishna is gone. So when that reflection or reflective surface is not there, that means the material world will not exist, at least for that living entity. So that is the whole idea behind the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. So the tree will be there in the spiritual world also, but where we can go from one branch to another in different mellows with Krishna, and then one fruit to another means we taste the fruits of the devotion service, the sweet fruits of devotion service on those branches. That is the real idea. Text 2. Adhashchordhvam prasritastasya shakha gun pravriddha vishay pravalaha adhascha mulani anusantatani karmanubandhini manushya loke. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestations of living entities, human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, the Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. So when it is said the lower parts of the branches and the higher parts of the branches, now the tree is upside down. So we have to understand that the tree is upside down, and the root of the tree, okay, according to Vaishnava philosophy, it's Brahmaji, and impersonal philosophy, they say it's Brahman. So the root of the tree is Brahmaji. So the branches which are closer to the root are where the demigods are situated. And as we go further away from the root, then the different species, like human beings and the other lower species, they keep on existing on those branches. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. So this tree is nourished by the material modes of nature because this is the material world. The tree represents the material universe, and it's nourished, or it's based solely on the three modes of material nature. And where those three modes of material nature are very strongly present, this material tree is very green. It's like flourishing. But one can say in the material world, there are three modes of material nature everywhere. So where is it that the three modes don't exist? They don't exist where people are practicing spiritual practices. They are engaged in spiritual practices. Or as long as they're engaged, then the material modes are not there at that time. So that means that material tree for that person is, this Ashwatha tree for that person is getting dried up. So one can say, yeah, everybody has its own tree, and there could be one huge tree for everybody together. One can understand it this way also. like a microcosm and macrocosm. So, but for the people who are engaged more and more in spiritual practices, their tree or the branch they are sitting on is completely getting dried up. Means they're ready to get out. The twigs of the tree are considered to be the sense objects. Why the twigs? Because the twigs are very soft and very tasty if somebody wants to eat those twigs. So the sense objects are like that. They're very soft, very tasty, very juicy, very succulent. And one wants to enjoy those. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses. And by the senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The tips of the branches are the senses, the ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. So the tips of the branches are our senses, and the twigs are the sense objects. Means these are the tips of the branches. They are very much, and that's where the twigs generally appear. Means they are very much attached to those sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense objects. Means that then there's a main root, main trunk, and then the subsequent roots or subsidiary roots also happen. Means roots which make the tree more strong. They're the subsequent roots, and Prabhupada is saying that they're made of attachment and aversion of the material world. But it's a same thing because it makes us more and more connected with the material world. Even if we hate something, so it is called attachment and aversion are the two parts of the same coin, two faces of the same coin. Our real process is to get attached to Krishna, Krishna service, Krishna Katha, Krishna Puja, Krishna Nam. That's where our attachment should have been. And when that attachment is there, then automatically there will be detachment from the material world. The tendency towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions. So they'll see secondary roots, they spread in all directions, means that the tree keeps on growing and growing and growing and growing further in all directions. Means there is no, we cannot find the end of it. The real root is from Brahma Loka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary systems, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma of fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. So only in the human form of life we create newer and newer roots, because here only we create these fruitive activities. And then what happens? Text 3 and 4. Na rupam asya tatho labhyate, nanto na chadar na sampratishtha, ashwatham enam suvirud mula, asanga shastrendranena chitva, tata padam tat parimargitavyam, yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuya, tameva chadyam purusham prapadye. Yatah pravriti prasrita purana. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom everything began, and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree. And how? With the weapon of detachment. And the real weapon of detachment is attachment to Krishna. When we have attachment to Krishna, means the desires are not there, then the tree becomes, it doesn't have the whole nourishment from the three modes of material nature because of our spiritual activities, means the tree is becoming weaker and weaker. It's getting dried up, and with the uh, aches or the weapon of detachment, we can cut down this tree. It's now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the root is upwards, the extension of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. So when we are inside those branches and enjoying the twigs, the sweet, the soft twigs, means the sense objects, and we are jumping from one branch to another, we cannot figure out where the tree ends. So one who is inside this material world, he cannot understand. So he has to either separate himself from the tree to see the real tree exists, or somebody has to pick him up and show him the existence of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of the research work. So that is Jnana Yoga. One has to search out the origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. So, that knowledge is very important. And that knowledge comes, like Prabhupada said, um, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of that Supreme Personality of God. We can revive our knowledge of the relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. And then we can cut off this tree, because then we want to be established in the original tree, in the real tree. The word asanga is very important in this connection, because attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures. And one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. As a result of such discussion in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the first thing one must do is surrender to Him. The description of that place whence, having gone, one never returns to this false reflected tree is given here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from whom everything has emanated. To gain favor of that Personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender, and this is a result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. He is the cause of the extension of the material world. This has already been explained by the Lord Himself. Aham sarvasya prabhu, Krishna says in 10th chapter, everything comes from me. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. So the process is association, and in the association to develop surrender to Krishna. Now the question is, what is surrender? That's $1 million question. Because we all hear about surrender, surrender, surrender. One must surrender to Him. But what is the surrender? So surrender actually means following the instructions of Krishna. not listening to our mind, not listening to our heart's desires, heart which is full of all sorts of material desires, just listening to Krishna and following those instructions. Now, as much as we follow those instructions, to the extent we follow, to that extent we are surrendered. Now, it's Krishna's or or Guru's. Guru is there to explain to us the instructions of Krishna and how to surrender and how to expedite that process of surrender. So Krishna has given plenty of instructions in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. So Guru, like Srila Prabhupada, what his business was, to make us understand actually what exactly those instructions are. What does Krishna mean? When Krishna says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyadi mam. Man mana, think of me. Now Krishna, Prabhupada will explain. Or Prabhupada, because he has learned from his disciplic succession. So the knowledge remains intact because that knowledge is also coming from Krishna. No, so man mana, think of me. So how to think? So then there is a process. Chanting, hearing, remembering, service, all these processes, Archana, the 9 Navda Bhakti is basically, Navda Bhakti has all the processes that are mentioned in this verse. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyadi mam namaskuru. So when we perform those activities, means we are surrendering. There's not that surrender will come sometime later. No, this is the process of surrender. Because this is what Krishna wants us to do. We are trying to follow the instructions of Krishna through the via media of Guru. So we are trying to surrender. Krishna says chant offenselessly, chant properly, chant with full concentration, okay, chant with devotion and love. Okay, we are not there yet, but we are still chanting. So that is surrender. Okay, maybe 1% determination is there, 1% attention is there. Okay, so we are 1% surrendered. Maybe we are not chanting 24 hours a day. Even it's in the heart, it's not going on. Okay, we are chanting for 1.5, 2 hours with 1% surrender. So that is surrender. 1% surrender for 2 hours. Slowly, slowly, slowly it will increase. The faith will increase. The surrender, the trying to follow the instructions of Krishna, the desire to follow those instructions will increase. Why? Because we'll start getting a taste in those activities. The real taste is there. Just like on Nirjala Ekadashi Day, we all chanted so many rounds. We didn't, or most of us didn't even feel thirsty or hungry or sleepy or tired or anything. Why? Because we were getting the taste in chanting the holy names. So real taste is there. More we make ourselves chant, more we make ourselves do other services, more taste we will get. More we make ourselves associate with devotees and in the association do some service together, more taste will develop, more we'll relish it, more we'll enjoy it, and more we want to do it over and over and over again. That's why Prabhupada, in the verse here, it says, talks about the association, and it has been stressed upon, association of devotees over and over again. Why? Because in the association of devotees, we can really relish service of Krishna. In the spiritual world, there are so many devotees, there are so many partial servants of Krishna, associates of Krishna that we can associate with, and together we serve. Like in Srimati Radharani's group, Of course, we only hear about 8 Sakhis, Ashta Sakhi. But in her group is made of I think 1 trillion gopis. That's her group only. That is association. And in that association, they all serve Krishna together. So that is surrender. That's how the process of surrender begins. Of course, then there are rules and regulations in the process of surrender to make us more pure, more clean to serve Him, more vigilant to serve Him properly. So that is the role of a guru, to explain us better and to engage us better in that service. So, okay, next verse. I think from 6th verse the theme will change. So, text 5. Nirman moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvanvar vimukta sukh dukha sangya gachanti amula padam avyayanta. And those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, those who understand the eternal, those who are done with the material lust, who are freed from dualities of happiness and distress, means who don't get bewildered, who don't get disturbed by this dualities in the material world, and who know how to surrender, they only attain to that eternal kingdom. They can only get out of this banyan tree of the material world. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Means humility is the first quality. Because a conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature, it's very difficult for him to surrender unto the personality of God. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not lord of material nature. The supreme personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. So surrender, as I said, is to follow the instructions. One who is very proud of his material position, of his titles, of his assets, of his property, of his knowledge, of his beauty, of powerful relatives, of powerful associates, of friends. Why would he want to surrender? Means why would he want to follow the instructions that chant my name, read my scriptures, or those other practices? So one who is so puffed up or so proud, they cannot surrender, or they cannot even begin the process of surrender. And that's a proper writing. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. One who is always expecting some honor in the material world, it's not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. So this desire to be honored, it's deep inside all of us. Even as a devotee, we want to be honored as, oh, this Prabhuji is a pure devotee. This Mataji is pure devotee. We want the honor. And that's what keeps us going. Because we want somebody to recognize what we are doing and appreciate. See how like it is said, that sometimes we get proud of our humility. We get proud of being humble. Oh, see, Prabhu, you see how humble I am? You haven't noticed that? Maybe you are envious of me, that's why you didn't notice. So that desire or expectation of honor doesn't make us surrender. Pride is due to illusion, for although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has a foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society. They have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is a proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such false notion, he becomes free from all false association caused by caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of God. So basically, this purport is not for us to judge others, that, oh, he surrendered or she surrendered or this or that. No, it's for us, our own introspection, that we try to understand where do we stand in the process of surrender. How much desire or hankering is there in our heart to be honored by others for whatever, for material assets or so-called spiritual progress. So that honor will stop us from surrendering. Because then we're thinking of ourselves. We're not thinking of how to serve Krishna. We're thinking of how to serve my false, illusory thought of that I'm better than others. So that will not help us in surrendering process, and then that will not help us in getting out of this material world. So anyway, I'll stop here. See anybody have any questions or comments? So I guess no questions. So you all have a wonderful day. Enjoy your Saturday. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you very much,
Hare
Guruji.
Krishna Prabhuji.